Perfect. Welcome everyone to the FIC Coalition meeting. So we're doing things a little bit differently today. We're structuring it a tad differently. So what we're going to be doing today is starting again with our government relations. We're going to start with Chris, who's going to be going over our lobbying and what we're doing, what news has come up. And then from Chris, we'll move on to Scott, who will be talking about our government strategies, and we will take it from there. So if Chris, you want to get us started, please.
Sure. Thank you very much, Tricia. And again, it's great to see everyone. There's been quite a bit of news over the last week, as I'm sure you've seen, and I know that Tricia has circulated some notes to the group. Last Friday afternoon, right before the long weekend, the government finally announced updated supports for businesses. This includes the new Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy Program, including a top-up, the extension of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy until June 2021, and the expanding the Canada Emergency Business Account. With the new rent subsidy program, it will provide direct funding to tenants and landlords to subsidize expenses up to 65% of eligible expenses. There will also be a top-up of 25% available to businesses that have been forced to shut down by local health authorities. Obviously, what we're seeing in certain provinces in Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa right now. Unfortunately, details are fairly scarce on how exactly this is going to roll out still. I had a call this morning with government officials, with the Assistant Deputy Minister of Small Business, where I did pose the question and reiterate to them that the fitness industry is hurting, particularly in these areas, and that these details are almost literally life and death for a lot of these businesses right now. So I was told that more details and the technical briefing documents should be available by next week. So I apologize I couldn't find out more information for you, but that's the best I could do at this point. So I think that's about it, Tricia. I know that Scott's going to update as well, and we'll talk about the news release that's going out as well.
Great, thank you, Chris. If anybody has any questions for Chris about anything that has come up recently.
Chris, I have a question. Emily from Alberta. Sorry if you kind of already addressed this, but do you have any indication, with it being a federal program, I heard mention of if there were mandated closures, that subsidy would actually increase. Do you have any idea if there is a differentiation between closures mandated by the province versus federally?
I don't have details on that, except to say that the top-up 25%, it's noted in their previous release that if they're mandatory shutdown by the public health authority, so the local health authority. And again, I know it's very difficult in those areas, but that will accommodate up to 90% of eligible expenses there, and it will be retroactive to September the 27th.
And do you know, is it the same case with the CEWS as well?
That'll be,
with the top up, is there additional funds essentially available if there are mandatory shutdowns?
I would have to take a look at that.
It might not be, because they might assume that salary costs decrease, and that might be the case for some, but I was just curious.
I know that the current subsidy rate of a max of 65% will be in place until December 19th.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
There's a chance that might increase beyond that to the end of June.
Thanks.
There's still just a note as well. The the program will be rolled out through CRA, and so they're on the call as well. And I share your frustration, and I think they share some frustration as well, even the government officials, with the lack of clarity on the program so far. But hopefully more will come next week.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Are there any other questions for Chris? If so, just let me know and we can definitely pass on your questions, and fingers crossed that we do find out more information next week. So what we'll actually do now is go to Natalie, and Natalie can actually talk to us about what we have learned from government relations, what they've done in Quebec, what they continue to do.
Thank you, Trisha. So from our perspective, it was to do a little bit more of an update related in particular to closures and the provincial government. So a little bit different than what Chris addresses as it relates federally. And I thought I'd give you guys a bit of here's what we've learned over the past, I don't know, where are we at, 7 months now? Here's what we've learned when it comes to that. Because I think that we're, in some instances of some of the things I've seen, especially since the Ontario closures, there's a few things in there that are specific provincially and other things that run across the country in terms of the decision making. So couple of things that we've learned that may or may not apply to all provinces, but I thought it was important to share with everybody, especially since what I'm seeing on social media being incredibly reactive and a lot of assumptions that we're making. So the first one is we've been told repeatedly that they want us to work with them. The challenge that's come with that, because what we have done here in Quebec, obviously, and in other provinces, is to work directly with them. The challenge with that has become for our members is that if they're closing anyways, and there's an assumption that what we're doing doesn't work. And I think that's a bit of a position that we're stuck in right now is, yeah, but you guys work with them. There's actually a small group here that's decided to do a full force protest opening on the 24th, I think, because they say, well, FIC works with the government. That's not what we want. Obviously, that's not working. They're just communicating what the government says. They're just being placated by what the government says. That's not working. Let's do something different. And what we've realized in 2020, more than any other year, they're absolutely not a fan of anything, in Quebec anyways, anything that looks or smells like a protest doesn't work here. The other groups that have come up in the fitness industry or tried to create themselves that are protest-based groups, the government doesn't even talk to them. That said, talking to them doesn't mean we stay open. And I think that's the piece that we're struggling with right now in terms of communicating with a lot of our members is a bit of a yes, but because what you've done hasn't worked, and we're going to try something else, and we're going to go the tougher fighting type of route. And so with us, everything they've communicated and they keep communicating with us is because we work with them. That doesn't mean we don't still try to lobby and influence, but anything that goes towards protesty or go against the government, that's when they shut down and they don't talk to those people anymore. So if we want to keep having government relations from our perspective, we need to let them know that we are working with them and respecting their decisions. The second big piece that we have learned is the actual decision makers, which in Quebec and from what I understand in other provinces is the public health authority, don't really understand what happens in gyms. The people who we are speaking to, we're preaching to the converted. And so for us, that's the sport minister's office. The sport minister has told us repeatedly that we are wasting our time trying to convince them that physical activity in gyms are critical to physical health, mental health, and immune health. Because all they keep saying is, yeah, we know. We are taking all of that and bringing it to the public health authority. They are responding something different, which brings me to the third piece, which is, as we've discussed in a lot of our FIC communications and meetings over the past few years, the healthcare minister is really a sick care minister. And right now, every provincial healthcare minister is not even a sick care minister, they're a COVID prevention minister. And they've been communicating really clearly that if we want to keep working towards something positive, we need to understand the difference between urgent and important. Yes, people's mental health are in jeopardy right now. That's important. To them, that's not urgent. Yes, people's physical health is in jeopardy. People's immune health is in jeopardy. That's not urgent. It's important. And so there's an avenue opportunity there for us to say, we understand that what you're dealing with is preventing COVID. Purely and simple, that's all you're looking at right now. Can we work together so that we can support, in as many ways as we can get creative to do it, the important healthcare priorities of taking care of people's physical, mental, and immune health? And they're looking for us to get creative with it, which means if we are 100% in the you must reopen our bricks and mortar facilities, that makes it challenging for them to say, we're working with them. That's the piece that we're getting from them, is the, we get what you guys need, we're giving you support, as much financial support as you can, figure it out. This is an international pandemic. If all you say is we have to reopen, there's not a whole lot we can do with you guys. And so this is the trouble that's there. The other piece that we've learned is most of our assumptions as to how, because we realize there are assumptions later in the game, as to how they make decisions on opening and closures have been incorrect. The biggest one right now is they're closing vectors of contagion. That's not what's happening. They're telling us both things. They are telling us you are not vectors of contagion. And yes, there's a couple of vectors of contagion that have happened, and we all think about the Spinco example and other things that are happening. Most of the decisions that were made before that. And we actually haven't had a lot of publicly available issues of contagion in Quebec, and they still put us in the red zone, so level 2 in Ontario or whatever it is everywhere else, in terms of closures. So fitness in general is still not in the high list of their vectors of contagion, and they're closing us. So those two things coexist right now in the way that the government sees it. When we ask them why they're closing us, we're getting a few different things. There's an algorithm behind the scenes that they're not completely sharing with us. But what we're understanding here is two things seem to happen. Number one, anywhere where people come to a place and breathe around one another for over 15 minutes, staying in the same space is something that they're very much looking to close. Which is why, no matter how frustrated it gets to us to go to Costco, Walmart, or anywhere else and see how packed it is, those are rarely places where people come and stay put for 15 minutes at a time. There is movement, and for them right now, that is less risky than places where you stay on a treadmill or in a group fitness class or on a piece of equipment or two for 15 minutes. The other piece that seems to be leading to this decision, and this piece is one that we got from our friends at the Kinesiology Federation, is, and I'll explain it to you this way. Physiotherapists are allowed to do their work right now in Quebec. Massage therapists are allowed to do their work right now in Quebec. Kinesiologists, sort of. They can do assessments in person. They can do post-rehab stuff in person. They are not, as it stands now anyways, what we've been communicated to us, they're not allowed to train. And the reason behind that is, and this is the one that's tough for us to swallow and figure out how to work around with them, is they say people can train without a trainer. People can train without gyms. People can exercise and be active and enjoy the benefits of physical activity without our facilities and without our fitness professionals. So that's why that piece is one that right now, again, I'm not saying I agree with them, I'm communicating to you what the government says. That's the piece right now where they're like, that's why these places can close, which is the same reason why they've got restaurants closed but open for takeout and delivery. Because people need food, but they don't need to eat it in a restaurant. This, again, this is the way that they're communicating to us and how they're making decisions. And it wasn't based on vectors of contagion because, as another example, museums were not a vector of contagion. Museums were closed. It also, in Quebec, doesn't mean it's everywhere else, has nothing to do with masks because they have to wear masks in museums and libraries. The museums and the libraries are closed. They closed a week before gyms. So we did propose the what if we wear masks at all times, and they were like, great, we'll put that in, see if we can keep you guys open. It didn't work because the mask, this was beyond masks at all times. Because a lot of places that did have masks at all times, that didn't even have high breathability, droplets or anything like that, like museums and libraries, were still amongst the first to close. So that doesn't mean it's the case anywhere else, but this is the situation in which we are now. What we can understand is, because it's more than 15 minutes, which is the one point of time that's been communicated with us, and because it's something that people can do on their own, it's one of the places that will close. And gyms, the part that's really tough in Quebec is they weren't part of the first group, they were part of the second group, so we thought we were going to be okay, and the sport minister seemingly fought like crazy for it to still be a part of what was open, but that did not work. And so our strategy right now, because we were told also by somebody who works in health services to say, everybody is saying this is a health crisis. You can't just say the heck with health prevention and just focus on COVID. And it seems like they're getting close, but they literally told us that secret sauce of getting them to click on how the fitness industry can be a part of health services hasn't been made. And we were told by a ton of people who work in the health minister's office and the sports minister's office that they're trying constantly to do this. The message is coming, but somehow it's not clicking in. And so literally we were told to put our creative hats on and try and figure out a way to help them understand that we will work with them to do this. One of the examples they gave us is the more we can connect on the comorbidity of COVID, and therefore if somebody does get it, has less of a chance of being a burden on the hospital services and being a burden on health services. If we can help with that, that would be great. The Kinesiologists Federation is working on saying that kind of a piece. So we're trying to find the nooks and crannies of work, of space, in order for them to understand that we can be a part of the solution. That's not just, yes, but this is what we do. Because the challenge is, as much as we can say we can have a massive impact on healthcare, we're also telling them not a lot of people come to our gym, so don't worry about it. And so there's a disconnect there between, 20% of the population actually visits us, yet we have a massive impact on the health and prevention of our community, because we don't if we only 20% of people come to us. So there's something there for us to sink our teeth into, and we're trying to get as creative as possible now to work and find those avenues for opportunities. And that's it. Happy to take questions if anybody has questions.
That was great, Natalie. Thank you. That was really comprehensive. A lot of stuff, food for thought that I hadn't considered before. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
My pleasure.
Any more questions for Natalie before we go on?
I just wonder, given how much we're all seeing on these counter movements and everything else, if it behooves us to try and take everything that Natalie just said and just try and explain, like, I know it's not our role necessarily to explain this to the public, but it seems like that's where there's a big disconnect right now. And between the government and the fitness industry, the people maybe not on this call, or not on our provincial calls, where we've gone through this stuff and tried to frame it as best we can. There seems to be this big gap right now, with the government and with the public too, and with especially what I'm seeing on social media, the arguments happening on Facebook right now between, somebody who's pro gym and somebody who's anti gym, and they're all people that like fitness and like working out, but there's this going on, whether it's worth trying to frame that somehow, as a group.
So that's a great point. And we do have a press release that we've drafted to send out. And I think from what I've heard and, spoken to many of you on this call and what's happening in Ontario and Quebec is, initially we We're going to have some public facing messages. We decided that would not go well without government support. But right now, I think silence is acceptance. So we need to have some sort of public facing message sticking up for our industry. But we can't fight government because that is just going to be ineffective. We're going to lose. And, you know, we need to continue to work with them, as Natalie said. These splinter groups, you got to understand, like I think we all do understand why they're frustrated. I think everybody's frustrated. So they're just going to go take matters into their own hand, but that's going to backfire badly because A, it's not going to work, and B, it's going to make our industry look like we're disjointed and unorganized, which may hurt us in the long run. So I don't know, Natalie, what level of, it sounds like you have some great face-to-face meetings, or at least, you know, phone calls with folks. And I think that's one of the keys that we have to do. And in the provinces that are still open, you know, I think it's urgent that we get ahead of the curve, so to speak. You know, in Alberta today, we had a call with economic development and health, and we said, we want to be part of the solution. We want to be part of the conversation because, you know, what's happening in Ontario and Quebec is frankly going to put people under, and there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking. You know, so how can we be a part of the solution? And one of the things with Spinco, they followed the rules. They followed the rules when you, you know, talk to their management, and when you when you read the articles from health, is they actually followed the rules, and they still had this event. So that means the guidelines are potentially flawed. So we want to work with government to be a part of the solution. And instead they just shut us down anyways. So I think those face-to-face meetings are critical. We really need to invite those groups that are fractioning away from us to come to our table, to try our best. I don't know if it's possible, but try our best to work cohesively with them, get those face-to-face meetings, really pressure whoever we're hiring for lobbyists. Like, sending letters is great, but we need to talk to people that can make an impact, and we need to say that we're willing partners and we want to work with them. Quebec is confusing to me because it sounds like we're doing all that, and it's almost like they're punishing industry for the behavior of people having backyard parties. It's bizarre. So anyways, we are going to do a press release. We wanted to run it by the Quebec and Ontario groups just to get your eyeballs on it. So I think I've sent it to everybody for your opinion. I think we need to have a public facing message. Silence, we cannot accept the decision. However, we do want to be willing partners with government and be part of the solution. So sorry, I think I'm rambling a little bit.
That's okay. One thing that might be helpful, Scott, for the splinter groups, and in case not everybody knows, Gabrielle Hardy, who's one of our provincial council members, has now taken the lead in Quebec, so I can try and continue to focus a bit more at the national level with everyone. And Gabrielle, because he does have one independent gym as well as a CrossFit, and the CrossFits are part of some of these splinter groups, has been sneaking into all of these Zoom meetings and calls. So being like, I'm just some guy. And so he's been sneaking into them. So if any other province has these splinter groups and you're looking to see how you can have those communications, Gabrielle's done a really good job of knocking on those doors and getting to them as much as possible and having them understand. Like, for example, here the threat is this group wants to open on the 24th, no matter what the government says. We are closed until the 28th and potentially longer, but they want to all open by force on the 24th. And public opinion right now is so splintered, like you said. We see so much of it that the risk to that is for us to just look like these, you know, dumb swole bros, that just want to open and no matter what, because the gyms, you know, the gym is what we need, as opposed to be a part of the health prevention solution. And so Gabrielle is communicating that constantly. So if anybody wants to get some tips as to how to do that, feel free to reach out to him, because he's been doing a really good job at slowly but surely trying to appease them and bring more people to the light as opposed to the fight. So just, if anybody needs anything, he'd probably be really helpful with that.
And having said that, we should be prepared if we know that's going to happen on the 24th, or if we can't prevent it, that we do have a planned statement saying that we don't agree with it. Because, you know, if we're supporting that, then we're in the fight. And I just, you know, I think we all, people on this call, the conversations have been that, you know, that's not where we want to be playing this game.
Yeah, my discussions with Fraser Health in British Columbia, it's interesting because it's sort of a similar pattern to what Natalie was sharing maybe even a month ago in her attempts to build a strong relationship and get commitment that we were essential. But they're saying similar things to I think what she was hearing back then, which is no, you're not part of the problem today, but you're not essential. And so those conversations seem very much to what she went through about a month and a half ago. But they are very, at least our health authorities, it sounds like this is consistent, which is why these protests really are a moot point. On the 15-minute rule, when they talk about contact tracing, they say the primary thing that they look at is who is the person that has been tested positive, who have they been around for a period of 15 minutes or longer. And that's the exposure risk, the transmission risk that they look at, and they see fitness facilities as facilities that you are around the same people for 15 minutes or more. So that's something that I don't think that the health authorities will ever budge on, because they say, and they as they should, they're going to make decisions based on science. And that's what I've been told consistently every time I try to start a conversation with Fraser Health or Vancouver Coastal Health, is that they're not going to budge on the 15-minute rule. And that's sort of what they're standing firm on. So to the point of these protests, they're really you know, they're going to gather negative, they're going to put us in a negative position, in my opinion, and they're not worth our time. They're not worth the fitness industry's time, and hopefully we can reach out and prevent them, because in my opinion, you know, health authorities are not going to budge. And even if they did budge, public opinion would always be in their favor, because, you know, if they budged, it looked like they were cowering to an industry and not standing on their principles of science. And we know now in the news and in the press, that's what people talk about all the time, is we're going to make our decisions based on science. And everybody in the public is committed to that, I think, at this point, is scientific decisions.
Just to say something here, is everybody on hearing me? I'm not sure. Yes. Okay. In Quebec, there's like Scott was saying, there is two things. First, a lot of gym have the impression and don't know what FIC is doing, so they have the impression that we are not working hard because we are not maybe saying out loud, hey guys, we are doing something, we are in discussion with the government, here is our plan for the weeks to come, the months to come, and so come aboard, you know. So when I speak to people, they just don't know what we are doing, and then they think we sleep with what the government, and like you say, saying nothing means we are behind them. So that's why I'm reaching out to help them understand what we do and help them understand we are not doing nothing. We are working right now. There is lobby going on. There is discussion going on. We try to find ways to make people know more about fitness, know more about what we do and how we can help. So this is one thing. And the other thing, about Monday or Tuesday, I will, for the Quebec people, I will have like a line of what we should say if the media comes to us and they are going to open, like few gyms are going to open and they are not well organized. They have some kind of leader who say he knows a lot about how to lobby, and they are talking right now with the opposition at the parliament. So they have two people in the parliament that are on their side, let's say this, and they're going to come out about 24, 25. They are saying they're going to open illegally. So I'm going to write something for all the members just to know if media comes to you, that is like the line of the FIC is this. So we don't stand behind this. We are doing other stuff. We are working on other plans, but for sure we are not supporting illegal like gyms to open illegally. So that is the other work I'm doing right now in Quebec for the next week.
And just to that point, Gabrielle, the press release that Scott or that people are going to share, it has that messaging very much in it. So you should be able to sort of pass that. One thing I'll just add to that people may want to look at, I know a lot of people in this group aren't doing it, but there's a lot of media out there as well, obviously comparing, like being like, so fast food's open and that's horrible for people, but gyms are closed. And there's all of these false comparisons. The liquor store's open, but gyms are closed, which that doesn't really help. Doesn't really help our case, especially from what Natalie just said, which is if we're looking at having to engage the other 80% and being a solution on the healthcare front, shaming the people that aren't acting healthy right now is not going to help us bridge that gap at all. So if there's people on this call that are, echoing any of that messaging or seeing it, I would just strongly urge that we keep the message positive, as we said, and focus on being a part of the solution. And that I completely agree that it's the other 80% of the market that aren't gym members, which is where we need to focus energy right now, especially those that are closed down, and how to bridge to that. I hope that I'll put some more stuff out about that I hope can help the group as well. But just, shaming people who aren't already active is not going to help them come to us right now when they need us the most either. So I just, strongly urge people to stay away from that if they can.
Well, we're going to have a plan for the weeks to come in Quebec in next week. Normally, I'm going to present it to Natalie and other people around CCI, CP in Quebec and FIC, let's say, in Quebec. And the plan is going to be to put some positive attention on how health can help you. So the like people, normal people and people that are not training are just going to say, okay, like it's good. And we're going to take like positive action just to make people more aware of fitness, but without shaming other behavior, let's say that. So this is a plan that is going to come with media posts and everything in the weeks to come.
So I'd like to propose maybe two things that we can do in short order. One is, Graham, I don't know if we can kind of have a list of meetings that we've had with various public officials. And, what Gabriel said was people don't know what we're doing. So maybe we need to actually tell people what we're doing. We had I thought it was very productive. Emily or Blake, you can, or Jeff, chime in terms of our meeting today with Alberta. So we need the facilities to know that we're actually having these conversations. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is with the splinter groups, and if they're having meetings with opposition ministers and they're having these conversations, we would like to support those efforts by being a part of those meetings, versus saying, well, you shouldn't be doing that, because that's not going to work. Like, how can we help and, present that unified front? I know it's like walking a tightrope, but those would be my recommendations.
That's why I'm in all those meetings and I'm just sneaking behind, just not saying anything and just understanding what they are trying to do. Sometimes I just lift my hand and share my opinion, and pretty neutral. I'm not flaming them or saying to them, what are you doing right now? Because any action like moving forward is good. But if an action is really, really not like behind what we think, for sure we have to know that it's going to happen and take like a stand for it. And the other thing is, yes, it should be very important to share the information of what FIC is doing, but not only to the members, because if we want to go get new members, those are all the gym that don't know we exist. So each time I talk with like there's another party, let's say, of the CrossFit. There are 70 boxes, 70 gyms in that group. And no one was knowing what FIC was. So I'm always like doing a small resume each and every week. So this is what we did. This is what is up to come. And please, everybody, come and join us. And it's pretty positive. But I talked with another CrossFit this morning, and he just did not know there was a coalition. There was something like national working to help the industry moving forward. So we should try to find a way to reach everybody out there on the internet, or just like all the gyms in Canada, just to say we exist.
If I can just jump in with a thought. I was thinking about what Natalie said and about the comorbidity stats. Now, last I heard, one of the highest comorbidity factors was actually obesity, and I don't know. Fact check me on that, but that was kind of the last ones that I heard. I think it's pretty clear we can no longer stand on gyms are safe because somebody will always turn around and throw the Spinco back in the face, and undoubtedly there will be more of those. Like, we can't prevent that. But what I wonder if we can say is that regardless of what happens, or regardless of what you're impacted by, or regardless of what flu or cold or illness or something like that comes into your system, you're going to be better ahead if you're healthy, if you're safe, you're going to recover faster if you have a healthy routine, not just physically, but also mentally. And I can be a spokesperson to that. Like, I've gone through my own bouts of depression over the past 6 months, and then find the benefits of getting back into physical fitness. Where I'm going with this is I think that those smaller subgroups, why they get so much momentum and power and press attention is because they're loud, and they don't really care about pissing people off because they're kind of on their like last desperate straw. And I say this as a person who founded one of those groups back in May in Alberta. What I think needs to happen with FIC is we need to get loud, and everybody's kind of saying, yeah, we need to get our message out there. Nobody knows what we do. Nobody knows who we are. Our message is getting jumbled up because we're quiet, and because everything that's happening with us is happening behind the scenes and in closed door meetings, which I agree, Scott, are great. I'm super excited that they're happening. I think they are productive and effective, but I do think we have to put a message out there. From the time that I've been on these meetings, we have a really hard time agreeing what that message is. Like, this whole group has a hard time, because, well, I don't know about this, and I don't know about this, and I don't know about this. So to me, as a marketer, like, I think it'd be prudent to say, what can we say? And maybe what we can say is, listen, the world's scary and it's crazy, and there's a lot of stuff out there. There's diseases and bad news and negative publicity. But what we do know is that being active is good for you, and that, it will help you to stay healthy, will help you to combat anything, whether physical or mental risks in this life, and get through anything. And maybe there's like a message from this National Fitness Industry Council of Canada. Like, we're here, to support owners and instructors, but also, you, and we just want to remind you to stay active, to stay fit, to be almost like the body break of the 2020s, and I'm not saying to get Hal and Joanne involved, but maybe we can. And, something like a video, the gal who actually reached out to us when we did our Fitness is Essential video in May, agree or disagree with the messaging all you want, I get it now, but that's fine. She created it was a video that went viral last year, was the "We're not sorry for being Canadian." It was a support Canadian energy video that went viral. I'm happy to share the link around if anybody wants to see that. But she is actually the one who reached out to us, and she's part of lobbying groups who create content like this, and said, hey, I'd love to get involved because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. So my thought or proposal here is, if we as a group could agree on messaging that we all do stand by, and that isn't political or is going to get us in trouble, but then can create some really fantastic content around that puts our message out there, gets people looking for us and hearing our name. And then in the meetings, we can go back to the government people and say, look at us, like, we have a stance, we're sharing fitness, whether that's in studio, outside, out, whatever, we're supporting mental health, we're supporting fitness, but we want to work with you. Just a thought.
I think it's a great thought. I think we should send out our press release today. If anybody disagrees with that, you can please do. I think silence is acceptance. There's a void, and so people are filling the void on their own. And I think we should actually look, Emily, at a professional video. I think that would be money well spent, because that could stay in market for a long time. And I think what we've said in this call over and over is, hey, we're not perfect, but we are trying our darndest, and we are on balance safe, right? We can't say that we're 100% safe, but I think we can say that on balance, fitness is beneficial. Try before you buy. We are partners with the government. We want to create the safest, healthiest solution for people to be active.
So just on that note, about getting the message out there, I'll just say something that I said to the Ontario group a couple of days ago. There is content coming from Good Life has had a third-party firm putting in the Practice Safe Fitness and getting this message out. So there should be stuff coming very soon from that firm that Good Life hired to put FIC messaging together for us, whether it's today or early next week. So there will be social stuff to share, and just everybody. I said this to the Ontario group too, but the best thing is get all of your social people to get it out to your members and encourage them to share it, because the more that this stuff has the network effects of everybody and all of their member base, the more virality to is. That's what we see getting taken up and getting picked up by the press too. So just implore everybody on here, if you're not the person that controls your social media, to get your social media tuned in the FIC channel and the different provincial Facebook groups or Instagram groups, whatever it is. And there should be content coming. And if you see content come from somebody it might be from their gym or one of their members or whatever, just share it anyways. You know, the more that it gets amplified by the network effects of this group, the faster it rises. And we see that that's what gets picked up. Even that story about people leaving Toronto to go up north to another gym, which was like an LA Fitness story. It's because some member posted it, and then it had virality, and then the press picked it up and interviewed the guy who was mad that he had to wait in line at his gym because of people from Toronto flooding to a non-closed zone, right? So we've seen it already just in short term. So again, that stuff is coming. There is movement afoot. I do agree we need to get more of it out. A video would be great, whatever we think is going to take the mess, but that stuff is moving. So just everybody take it and share it and amplify it.
The issue though is that happy, safe content that says we practice 2 meters, 3 meters, and we disinfect our stuff, and a press release isn't viral, and it's never going to be. What's viral is staging a protest. And that's the problem. They're always going to be louder, which is why we either have to come up with something great, or you kind of just continue to trickle along.
A lot of the content that's I know being prepared, I haven't seen it yet, is more about, it goes along with the press release we're just putting out. Hey, the fitness industry is working together. It's this message that we're talking about that hasn't been out, about the fitness industry is working together. We are doing everything we can. I think the message is to minimize risk, as opposed to we're safe. We're doing everything we can to minimize risk and be as healthy and safe as possible. But I do agree, Emily, there needs to be something catchier than that. And it is these other things that we kind of disagree with that get picked up. So we've got to figure out how to counter that with something, and it's going to take some clever thinking, I think, some way of spinning it or going sarcastic or ironic with it or something like that that's gonna have more viral effect.
On the press release, Scott, I do want to speak to it. I'm not necessarily, so first of all, I don't think Friday is a great day to be sending a press release out. I think I caught that in the chat as well. I would echo that timing wise. I think that if I could lend some assistance, Eric and I are both on the phone, maybe with some changes or some polishing of the press release to help a little bit. I think that we have to have some external quoting, and there's some things I'd like to clarify, including the check-in numbers and stuff like that. So if we could have a follow-up, I could definitely help make it better, although I don't think, I just maybe want to be realistic with the group. Yesterday, we had the Canadian press reach out regarding our reaction to SpinCo, essentially, and how the Ontario government was going to potentially revisit the restrictions around gyms in Ontario, although we haven't heard anything since. And they wanted to know how we were going to react, and they asked some follow-up questions, which gave us an opportunity to talk about our large volume of successful and safe check-ins. So we put that number out there. I don't know if anybody on the phone caught some of that media this morning, but it did get picked up by a number of outlets. They didn't carry the positive message whatsoever. They didn't carry our safe check-ins. They don't care about good news. This is the media. So this is what I've been saying to this group and to the Ontario group for a while. You have to be really careful with this stuff. A, if you don't have a hook that's compelling, that fits the narrative for the reporter or the piece, it's not going to get picked up. So I don't feel as though my opposition to putting a press release out is likely going to stop this group from doing it. But I think we need to be realistic about, it's not going to, without a hook, without a story, and likely something that they can derive some sort of negativity out of it, it's unlikely, like a protest, like Emily was saying. You're not going to support it. They're not going to support you through a narrative. Putting a press release out is going to just fall on the floor of the press room. There's no hook. It's basically, hey, we're FIC, we're here, pay attention to us. And they're going to go, we are paying attention to you. What did you guys, what did you screw up that we can talk about? So I just want to be realistic. I'm happy to help make it better, and I get it. I'm desperate too. I'm with all of you. We all want the same thing. We all care about Canadians and the health and physical and mental well-being of so many people. It's so important. I'm just telling you that we need to be realistic about the message that we're going to send out. I'm not feeling good about it.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going to reiterate that what you just said, Jeff, in a different way, in that the elephant in the room, like I've listened to you guys talk for the last 50 minutes here, the elephant in the room that you're not talking about is the fact that, look, this thing spreads in 3 different ways. 1, through formite, 2, through droplets, and 3, through aerosolization. And if you want to talk to anybody in government right now, like Scott, Jeff, we were just on, Emily, we were on a call with the government of Alberta. What did the guy from Alberta Health spend most of his time talking about? Aerosolization. That's their concern today. That's the media's concern. And within a small studio setting, we've got to find a way to have an answer to that question, because Jeff's right. You put out messaging that we're safe and we're essential and all these things, and that's at the end of the day, that's all that's going through their minds, and they're asking themselves, how does this address that?
We told them yesterday we had 9 million check-ins with 0 transmission. I had major internal hurdles to go through to get that message out there, thinking, great, this is gonna do something. This is going on the attack. Didn't get picked up. Didn't support the narrative of the piece. The press all over the country didn't find that compelling.
But is it really what we're fighting right now? Do we really want to be crisis centric? Like, we have a solution for after the crisis. So in Quebec, and what I'm planning with Natalie and all the staff is more like, can we fight for something like strong? The message is not passing right now. We want to open, we want to stay open, and anyway, they're going to close us anyway. So can we position ourselves for the after? Can we ask something for the government, for budget, for after? Can we say, let's say something like, okay, we analyze right now the 50 and plus with secondary condition are more at risk. Like they are saying it, they cannot say it's not true. So can we vote budget for after the crisis to help those people come to gyms and take care of their health? If this is okay, they're going to be okay to vote for that and place our industry in a good position for after COVID. So are we fighting for staying open in the crisis, or we are fighting for our industry to be okay for the years to come? And the message right now, if we go out there and we say practicing fitness is good for your health and everything, they know that. So it's not a message for right now, it's a message for the long term, so for the years to come. And we have to plan this. We don't care for like being explosive on the internet, and for sure the media don't want that right now. They want like big news and big stuff that public opinion is saying, oh my God, what is happening, and blah blah. But I think FIC should work for the long term. We don't fight this fight right now. We fight the health and publicize that health is good for everybody and being in their head for a long time, in my point of view.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just being realistic about the amount of media you're going to get without a crisis to write about. So I think our efforts towards rent relief and how to help the fitness industry and the fitness professionals across this country at a federal level is where I'm going to put most of my horsepower right now.
I think, like you said, Jeff, they need something that has some conflict or some controversy. That's what they want to run on. And the only 2 things that I see that have come from these discussions we've had here, and I don't know if they support the general mission of the FIC, is 1, there's going to be there's going to be inevitable potential massive closures of the industry. I don't know if that's a message you want to get out, but that's something they're going to run with. That the consequences of these shutdowns is going to be this. And that's something that everybody is very fearful of. That's one narrative we know that they would run with. Whether that benefits or not is another question. And the other one is obviously how much this group disagrees with all these protests and all this stupid messaging that is going out. And again, like, unless we want to take that on head on and say, this is why all the stuff that that people are doing is useless for the fitness industry, which could create the type of conflict. But again, I'm not sure it goes in with the values of this group in general. But to me, those are the two things that where there is controversy or conflict that people would run with if we want to try and work with the press in what their goals are.
Is this about, Nick, to get back to what you're saying there, is it now about making noise to get open, or are we really going to consider shifting to survival and making certain we have the support, the financial support, the rent relief, the subsidies to survive, to weather the storm, whether it's, I mean, we just got shut down here in Ontario and York Region an hour ago for the next 28 days. So now, we're worried about survival for the next 28 days. And maybe that should be the message. And I think someone just posted something on the chat about that just a moment ago, rather. So maybe this is the message is, hey, we need help to survive. And then again, so we can be here to service you properly after this is all over.
Have a look at the release in the chat. If you want to send Tricia some feedback, I think I've heard from everybody. Today's not the day to send it, even if it was perfect. So let's wait the weekend. I am adamant that if we don't send something, other people are going to do it on our behalf in the void, right? So we need to send something just to make sure that, and also to show people that we're doing something, but open to feedback on what that something should be. But I think we need to do something fairly urgently. We do touch on, we want to work with government. We need support. Otherwise, there's going to be casualties. And maybe we spin this to condemn the people that are, protesting illegally. So maybe that's the route we need to do, but I think we need to have a message on Monday. Otherwise, others will just do it for us.
I don't disagree, Scott. I think maybe stronger in that release, because we're compelled to send it, would be that we're more or less making the media aware of FIC.
Yep.
And inviting them to reach out to us for commentary and opinion and things like that, so that we can support this entire group and our shared goals in those responses. I think that's, I don't know how many media requests we get, Tricia, but, we're not the common source of insight for the media when it comes to the gym industry. They tend to call various people, they call us obviously as well, but they call, also subgroups and independent owners, and they get these different pieces that they spin. And so I think that, the out and out purpose, if we don't have a hook, is to just make them aware of us and say, we are inviting you to ask us questions and get your, your clips and your stats and your information from us. And I think that would be really helpful. Is, the purpose is more, jumping up and down and saying, we're here, pay attention to us.
Okay, that's a great point, Jeff. So and I'll put a deadline on it for everybody. Natalie put the press release in the chat box. That is the latest version of it. If anybody who has any edits to make, if you could kindly make those edits and track changes or any comments and email me by, let's say, afternoon on Sunday, so we can actually send it out by Sunday night to have it ready for Monday morning to be out into the media. Let's do that.
So Trish, can we get that?
Sorry?
So Trish, can we get that link out there again? I'm not seeing it for some reason.
Yeah, so if you don't see it in the chat box, what I'll do is after this meeting, when I send out my kind of review, I will send that to everyone.
Everyone, it's Dave Hardy. If I could just add one little comment. By the way, great discussion today, and I'm not sure there's any perfect answer or even necessarily a good answer for how any of this is going to work, but I do sort of concur with what I've heard from some of the people speaking, that, I feel like we are going to be a bit of a whack-a-mole if we keep putting our head up in the media. I mean, the reality is, as I said, there's more and more evidence that health departments in particular are moving towards this aerosolized spread. And well, going out there and protesting, and there is no question, we even heard it from the Alberta government. They recognize the closing down fitness has a very profound effect on others. It's much more wide reaching. I think we're going to have to address it. But it sounds to me like perhaps we have some internal communication problems as well. Maybe we need to do a better job explaining what's going on and explaining the position of what we've seen to not just the people that are taking time to come on these calls, but to as many people in the industry as we can. And I guess that's a question I have, Scott and Tricia. Is there more we can do that we can explain, what we're finding with government? And, quite honestly, the health departments, they don't like getting put on the stand. They don't want to be backed in, don't back baby into a corner. We don't want to be fighting with these guys. We want to be working with them, because it's a whole lot easier for them to just say, well, then to hell with you guys, shut them down for 28 days, rather than how can we keep lines of communication open to figure out how to work together. Either way, the press release, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be careful, because as we've heard on the call earlier today, in the news cycle today, the news business is in the business of selling controversy. They're not in the business of selling good news. And each time we put our head up with a press release, they're going to come back and ask us about SpinCo, and they're going to ask us about the negative things, not the positive things. And I think, when we put our head out there, we should be careful for that. But more importantly, maybe we can do more to get our industry aligned, so that everyone understands we're not being quiet. And the groups in Quebec, I think we're being very well represented there by Nathalie and her group as well. So that they all realize we have a strategy here, and we're trying to figure out how to work with government rather than fight them. Because the reality is, in the U.S., you can fight government and they'll back down. In Canada, we are very based on science, and quite honestly, for the most part, we trust a lot of our politicians, which is a big difference in the U.S. Either way, I just think we need to be careful at how we proceed. My only recommendation might be better communication internally as an industry.
I think we've been fighting that fight for a while, and frankly, this pandemic has brought on more people. We've heard from various folks that the CrossFit boxes and the boutiques and the mom and pop facilities that had no clue who FIC was, some of them know us now, not all of them. So I don't know how to get the message out, except for everybody on this call to go tell 10 people about what we're doing. I saw something in the chat, I think from Matt, about using our social media. So we have to shout from the rooftops, this is what we're doing for our association. We need two messages. One to the people that we're representing, so they know that we're actually doing something for them, so they don't feel that they have to go do it on their own. And two, we need some sort of public facing message. I agree we need to be careful and we don't need to overdo it, but I firmly believe if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it for us. So that's where everybody now has a copy of the press release. Please give us your feedback. But if we stay silent, others are going to speak on our behalf. And that's a problem, I think.
So we're decided that this press release is going to be going out Monday. So if you do have feedback on it, highly recommended that now is the time to speak up and let us know what your thoughts are. And if you have edits, please send them my way so we can incorporate what is necessary in order to go out and represent us as a unit. Any other final questions, concerns for today before we wrap it up?
Is the same letter, Scott, that you provided me this morning or last night for rent relief? What's the plan with the rent relief approach?
So Chris was in the meeting today. They said they're going to get back to us with more details next week. I asked Chris to put his hand up and make an impassioned plea that it is somewhat life or death for a number of folks. And the different caps and the different goofy rules they've had in the past are hurting people. And I've also asked grassroots to try and get us a meeting. It's one thing to send letters and attend phone calls, but if we can actually get in front of somebody and make that impassionate plea. And it's like, the government says, trust us, it's coming. We're going to close you anyways. So just hang in there. And, that's why people are freaking out.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because I think Parliament is getting together next week to pass a redraft of this relief bill and the rent subsidies on there. So I'll just make the group aware as well that we're exercising some of our channels, local MPs. We're not in a position to just let them assemble next week, pass legislation that's going to pass even the larger organizations by, because we have the exact same problem that other people do. These rent subsidy programs are not they're not provided to us, so we need to make some noise about it. We're going to. So.
All right, great. And as always, if you are currently not a member of FIC and attending these calls, please, please, please go become a member. You can go to our website. I put the link, Carl put the link in the chat as well. So ficdn.ca/memberships, and it's $40 per month per location. So please do make sure you do that. And if you have not yet completed the surveys on topics that are important to you, please do fill out this survey, because that will help us pick our discussion points for these meetings. And next week, we are going to be having a discussion with our supplier partners. So if you have questions about anything that you want to ask your suppliers about certain things, next week, next Friday is the day to do it. So that being said, thank you all for connecting, and you'll hear from me in an email very soon, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Trisha. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.